Welcome to a Dash of Life podcast, where every episode brings you a touch of spirit, a pinch of passion, and a zest for life.
Hi, thank you for coming back for part 3 of episode 6 of A Dash of Life podcast, Man versus Woman. I hope that you liked the first 2 parts and maybe something resonated with you, gave you a little bit of a different perspective. So thank you for coming back for part 3. And in this part, we are going to focus on self-control as it relates to men and women and their relationships, as well as sexual relationships and that control sexually. So let's get into this, and thank you again. Please like the video, please share it, and subscribe to the channel so that you get the notifications for when new episodes come out. But I'm going to first start with some staggering statistics that we see when it comes to assaults against women. And this is internationally. According to the UN, United Nations, 1 in 3 women have been the victim of either physical violence or sexual violence. And I don't know about you, but for me, that number, it is shameful. It is preventable. Let's just say that too. And if we think about it, if you think like all the women that you come across, at church, at work, kids' games, wherever, just out and about, concerts, 1 in 3 women have been assaulted. Now, we do know that the majority, and I believe it's 87% of sexual assaults are man to woman. So that is also very telling. And I will also say that men are also the victims of sexual assault, whether it be from a man or from a woman. Men too experience sexual assault, so we're not going to leave them out. But when we talk about the 1 in 3 statistic, I would just suffice to say that this could probably be a little higher, even if it's a minuscule amount. But this could be higher if you think about the women that do not report or underreport. So that statistic could be a little bit higher, which is there's no reason for it. There is no reason for it. And I'll get into that in a little bit. But if those numbers do not bother you and do not strike a nerve with you, then you're part of the problem to a degree. Because if we don't protect our women, then we're missing out on so much. We have a duty, and I think men have a duty as well, to protect women. Now, why are women assaulted? Why, what are some of the common reasons for women being assaulted sexually? Entitlement. A man feels like a woman's body, it is his and he's entitled to do whatever he pleases with it. Sexual entertainment and punishment. We see that women in the Congo are sexually assaulted, raped every day. And it's either for sexual pleasure or punishment. We know that's a war-torn country. And so if those men had a different mindset, then the women wouldn't be experiencing that. And for the purposes of this conversation, I'm going to stick with the United States information. If we talk about the world's, that is a very tangled web. And we can get so deep into that that I don't think I right now have enough time or resources to do all of that. So I'm just going to focus on the United States in terms of this conversation. But also, let's not forget about the women across the world who are consistently assaulted, who are consistently shunned for wanting to speak out. I think as a society, we've gotten it wrong. And I'll tell you why in a little bit. So, also getting back to the factors, dominance, and it kind of talked about that, but a male feels dominant over a woman's body. I don't believe that's what God intended. Gang violence, that is also another primary causal factor for women's assaults. And then if we think about human trafficking, the trafficking of women sexually is a billion-dollar industry, and who are the majority of those that are experiencing or benefiting from human trafficking? That's also something else to think about. That also is very much a deep web intertwined with other factors that, that's above my pay grade, if you will. But that also is a primary cause for women's sexual assault as well. The torture and the suffering that are placed on women globally. I'm going to leave it at that. I'm going to leave it at this because I'm very passionate and emotional about this. But you cannot tell me, even if you don't worship Jesus, if you don't feel like Jesus is God, Jesus is Lord, if you practice a different religion and you pray to a different God, you can't tell me that God is okay with women and how they are being treated and punished and tortured across the globe. I just don't believe that. I don't believe that, and I think as a human species, we've gotten it wrong. I believe women should be treated with dignity, respect, and not to say that it's not out there. It's out there. There are people who cherish women, and I feel like that's how it should be. Like, if you have an amazing woman and the way that God intended that relationship between man and woman, I feel like that is how it should be. Where, and I talked about this before in the previous part, but the woman should be respected completely by her partner for who she is and what she represents, and her alone being a child of God. But I do believe that the narrative has changed so much and that we've evolved so much that, and this could be because of entertainment. Entertainment is very influential of people, especially if we are putting out certain things for the younger age groups. But I think that it's gone so far that we see women out here, we see females out here disrespecting their own selves. And I think we need to change that narrative, and we need to come back from that. If we talk about how we are raised, when we're young, we're taught at a very young age that this is my space. This is my space. This is their space. And you don't come into my space unless you're invited or I say it's okay, right? We keep our hands to ourselves. And it sounds so juvenile. But if we brought that into adulthood and men took the time to control their emotions in the moment or whatever else is going on, I don't think we'd be here. That might be controversial, but I don't think we'd be here if we took those principles that we learned when we were younger. This is my space. This is your space. We stay out of each other's space. I don't hit. In this instance, I don't assault. And it's a line that shouldn't be crossed unless you have consent. And I'll get into that later too. I love to keep things simple, right? I do not like I do not like complicated things. Like, not to say that I can't deal with complications and, complicated tasks, etc. I can, but like, I like to live a simple life. And it might be on the auspice of like not being juvenile, but just in that aspect, because, when we're younger, we're taught about self-control, right? Something very simple. Use your inside voice for inside, your outside voice when you're outside. Something simple. Simple. But you know what we lack as adults is accountability. When we're younger, we are accountable to our teachers, we are accountable to our parents, we are accountable to our coaches. But when we become adults and we cross that threshold into adulthood, who are we accountable to? Me, I'm going to say I'm accountable to God, and I'm accountable to my conscience, I think. I very much try to treat people the way that I want to be treated, whether they deserve it or not, but that's another story. But that's what we're taught when we are younger. The golden rule: do unto others as you would have them do unto you. So when we don't have that accountability as adults, our accountability is the legal system. So when we look at a legal system who, that is a whole nother topic. But when we look at a legal system that, and a lot of times they get it right. I will say a lot of times they do get it right, but a lot of times they get it wrong. And a lot of times when it comes to sexual assault, there are so many other different factors into that some of the victims don't get justice. Now, I don't want to get off on a tangent on that, because I feel like there are so many different tracks that we could take this, right? But I want to stay focused on man versus woman and self-control and things like that. So in high school, or I should say, men are typically taught that when a woman says no, she means no. Now, are there some that are manipulative and try to get her out of saying no? Maybe she says no. Maybe she says no one time, but then, I really want her, so I'm gonna manipulate the situation so that I can get what I want, right? But when we talk about consent, if a woman says no, then take it at face value. That means no. That doesn't mean that you're entitled just because she said no, and you need to complete and finish what feelings that you have currently physically. Well, then leave the situation and go take care of it. That doesn't give you a right to be like, you're responsible for how I'm feeling right now. You're going to get me this far and then you're going to say no? Well, maybe she's not ready. Maybe she felt pressured. But we have to take a woman's no at face value. That's her body. And it should not be violated by somebody who's being selfish. Self-control is the foundation for creating an environment where women feel safe and secure. We can assume that the majority of people have a conscience. There are some that don't. I think the way that the mind works for some of these people is completely different than what we can comprehend. I would say that the majority of us have a conscience, right? So when you are in a situation and you know that you are about to cross a line, what is your conscience up here telling? What is your spirit telling you? Probably saying, no, don't go there. No, stop. Right now, stop. No. So I think that in that effect, in that instance, there definitely needs to be more self-control about how we respond to situations, period. And how males view women when it comes to those sexual relations. Ultimately, the woman still has the right to say no, regardless of how far you think it's gone. Now, some people, again, here we go with the manipulation. Some people will say, well, it was the alcohol. I couldn't help it. I couldn't control that. No, 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 no. If you can't control yourself while you're drinking, then don't drink, period. Or stay away from people. Like, don't put yourself in that situation where you feel like if you know you can't control yourself and you've been drinking, don't even put yourself in that situation. That is self-control. We, in no certain terms, have the ethical or legal right to violate somebody else, period. And it's not a question. It's not even like, oh, well, they kind of did me wrong, so I'm going to reciprocate that. No, it's not even like we have no legal or ethical right to violate anyone. And it doesn't matter how. I'm focusing on sexual violation right now, but it doesn't matter how. Even physically. Unless you're defending yourself, that's something completely. But if you are on the offense on this, and somebody is refusing or saying no, you do not have the right to violate that person, period. I hate to say it, but there definitely needs to be more of an emphasis on self-control. However, if you feel like you need multiple partners, I'm sure you can find your people. I'm sure you can find your people, regardless if we feel like it's morally, ethically right, or even under the auspices of God. I'm sure you can find your people. You would not have a problem. So stop being selfish. It boils down to, I believe, being selfish and fulfilling a selfish desire. That's what I believe it is. The lasting effects of sexual assault on a woman, on someone, even if it's a man, the lasting effects of that are generally for a lifetime. Like, that's something that they're not going to come up out of quickly. They don't trust people. Depending on how violent it was, they might be fearful for their lives. They, feel ashamed. And it's not even something that they potentially brought on. It doesn't matter. That shouldn't even be part of the conversation. If somebody says no, it ends there. So leave it there. And I think it boils down to complete respect for the woman in the way that God made her and intended her to be the helpmate for the man. I think that society has gotten it all wrong in terms of how they view women. A good bit of society, not everybody is like that. There are a lot of people out here who respect the female, who respect the woman and what she brings to the relationship or what she brings to society. And I talked about that, and I believe it was part 2, for some of that nurturing leadership and stuff like that. But I was watching a video the other day that was talking about Cherokee women and how Cherokee women not only, had the children, but Cherokee women were part of the tribal meetings. They were part of the military, if you will. They went to war. They fought as warriors. And, they were highly respected within the Cherokee culture. And I feel like there are a lot of men out here who feel that women's place is just to stay home and have children. No. And I talked about it previously in part 2. If it was, God wouldn't give women the amazing talents that they have. And we need to flip this narrative, because men need to respect women for who they are, period. And how God created them to be the helpmate. Those that do it, I salute you, and I will say that y'all are amazing, because women have been victimized so much in our society that women do need a place that is safe and secure and inviting for them and accepting of them. That's what women need. Instead of having to fight all the time to show up as she is. All right, so I'm going to pivot a little bit. We have a little bit more time, but I want to really talk about how we can change this narrative and further respect and practice self-control. So the encouragement of self-control, respect, empathy, all of those factors, plus many more, will certainly lead to a decrease in violence against women, as well as foster a safe environment for her. Women like to feel safe. I can attest to this. I grew up in a very violent household, and for years, and I'm talking about like into my adulthood years, at night, there are certain things that I had to do and that I had to see in order to feel safe. Like at night, if I heard a loud noise waking up and that woke me up, it would take me immediately back to those kinds of situations that I saw when I was younger. And I'm going to tell you, I was probably like 35, I think, before I came up out of that, before I really felt like as an adult I was safe. And so I say all that to say is that women want to feel and need to feel safe by their partners. And so when we create that safe environment for women, that's where they shine. And that's when you see them as their best selves. Respecting a person's boundaries, that also can encourage self-control and be a catalyst for understanding self-control and a person's boundaries. These are boundaries that you do not cross. So as we show young men when they're younger, and we talk about the boundaries of a woman in terms of consent, sexual consent, then that will further support an environment of self-control. Promoting healthy attitudes towards women will certainly also foster an environment of self-control. If a male, say a bunch of males are together and, there's this rhetoric that's going on that is non-supportive of women, if somebody speaks up against that, that speaks volumes to the rest of the men that are around to say, hey, that's not cool. We shouldn't be doing this. So I feel like those types of interventions, if you will further support self-control. And I think that healthy attitudes just in general towards women across the globe will further support that. We have a long way to go globally when it comes to, and I'm going to say back in the United States too, we're going backwards in terms of women's rights in the United States. And globally, we need to be able to continue those gains that we have seen historically in the United States. If we have that type of supportive attitude towards women globally, then that will help deter violence against women that stems from harmful beliefs about women's worth, gender roles, or male entitlement. If we controlled men's bodies the way that we try to women, I don't think that would even happen. I really don't believe that would happen. And why are we subjected to that as a woman? Just asking a question. Men should understand and support that women are not here just to have children and raise a family. That I wholeheartedly believe that was not God's intent when he made the woman. They should understand that women are individuals with equal rights to safety, respect, and autonomy. Men are challenged to object to sexist and objectifying language when it comes to talking about women. And this is where the whole respect thing comes in, because you can't be over here talking about, and I get it, men, you have a different experience, but if you truly respected a woman, then you would not engage in sexist talk. That's what I feel like. I honestly believe that. And the more that it's rejected, I feel like the more that it would foster an environment of self-control and builds a culture where women are equals. So, I could talk about this all day long. I am very passionate about helping women, because I feel like women are subjected to so much and have to overcome so much. And it's just across the board. And so I hope that some of what was discussed in this episode, the complete episode, there is a lot to unpack in this whole entire episode 6, all 3 parts. I can only have enough time to touch on a few things, but my objective here is completely to give you a different perspective so that we can all live our best life in our dash. Time flies. And the world would completely be a better place if we just showed up with a caring mind, attitude towards others. The world would really be a beautiful place. So I thank you for tuning in for this whole complete episode 6 as I round the corner on part 3, or as I close part 3. I thank you for tuning in. I thank you for your support. And, if there's an opportunity to help a women's group, and I am not saying I am a feminist. I think some of the feminist attitudes are not what God's intent is. So I just feel like that we as society need to respect and understand God's intention for women when he made them. All right. Thank you so much, and see you on the next episode where I talk about self-worth.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of A Dash of Life podcast. I hope today's conversation added a touch of spirit, a pinch of passion, and a zest for life to your day.